Okay, this is a talk on how your habits can inadvertently lead to targeting, and also how your habits are acquired through neuro language programming. Obviously, one of my aims is pretty obvious: to help others who go through the same experiences I do. I'm a targeted individual, has been for 20 years, and I have analyzed my situation to find that half the reasons why I feel targeted are down to things that I can fix myself just by paying attention to myself. Back to the topic of habits, yeah, and what role do habits have to play in one's situation when you're feeling like a targeted individual? What role do habits have to play in that? Now, and how does NLP induce habits? That you can do some research yourself to see how they can induce habits in people with NLP, and why the perpetrator you see in front of you might not be a perpetrator at all. It might just be someone who has acquired a habit that is inadvertently, with respect to him, inducing this feeling of you being targeted. It's as simple as this. Just imagine if you was at one end of a street and another person, let's say you was at one end of a street in a bar, and a quarter mile away on the other end of the street someone's in a cafe. Now, this is how your habits can inadvertently lead you to become a perpetrator. Now, let's say someone was walking past the cafe on the other end of the street, and as they was walking by, just by chance, they just happened to look across to the cafe and saw a man coughing. Then, if they weren't really paying attention to that, their subconscious will pick that up as a habit. Then they'll start coughing as they're walking across the street. And then on the other side of the street, let's say 100 meters of walking, they cough, and at the same time, someone on the other side of the street was just turning around to see them at that time. Then they'll start coughing. Then they walk out 200 meters, and then on the other side of the street, they see another person who just happens to be turning his head as they're coughing, and then they'll start coughing. And then he walks 100 meters away and looks across in the bar where you are, and as you're just happening to look upon him, and he coughs, and then you find yourself coughing. Yeah. So, and then if you're like me and you notice that, why am I coughing all of a sudden? Because I always ask myself, has anybody induced this in me? So then I start to remember, when did I start coughing? I must have started a few minutes ago. What was I looking at? Oh, I must have looked at someone passing the window of the bar that I'm in as they were coughing. That was my perpetrator. You see, that's what I would think. That's the perpetrator. But it's not. Because that was someone who was inadvertently, who picked up a habit that inadvertently was used to bring about this feeling of me being targeted. So not every perp you see in front of you is the one who's directing things. Yeah? Someone could deliberately sit at the end of the street in the cafe and deliberately cough at people so that they can get to you and induce coughing in you. So it could happen deliberately. But all I'm saying is sometimes that's why when you approach, if I was to run after that person that I saw in the bar and I said, listen, you, why are you trying to make me cough like this? They'll say, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know anything about it. Yeah. They might not even know that they've picked up that habit of coughing all the time. They might not even know. Now, these are little signs. Like sometimes you see people, and you must have seen this as targeted individuals, because now you have opened your eyes to the real world. So you must have seen people who every 5 seconds they turn around and look at you like that. You can count to 5 for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they've picked up this habit of looking at you every 5 seconds. Yeah. Now, before you go around attacking them, say, what are you doing? They might not know that they've picked up this habit. It could be someone else who's doing them. I was in a building once where you see a public place, you're sitting there, and then I noticed someone, it was around 5 seconds anyway. Every 5 seconds, they'll turn around and look at me. Every 5 seconds, they'll turn around and look at me. Every 5 seconds, they turn around and look at me. Yeah? And I noticed this at the corner of my eye. So I started counting in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I looked at the corner of my eye. And I could see that they're following that behavior. Obviously, I thought, should I confront them? But then this is when I remembered this bit that I'm talking about. That maybe that's somebody who doesn't know that is having that habit. Yeah. From the corner of your eye, you can see, and then when you look at them, sure enough, he looks, and then 5 seconds later, he looks again, 5 seconds later, and I'm looking at him, and then he starts to feel like he wants to ask me, what are you looking at? Then he realizes that every 5 seconds he's looking at you, he's looking at me. Yeah, so then he kind of like realized that he's got that habit, and he couldn't talk to me. I just looked at him, and he noticed that he's got that. If he doesn't notice, then you tell him, I'm looking at you because I've noticed that every 5 seconds you keep staring into my face. Yeah. And then you can have a little banter about it and say, have you noticed that you're doing that? Because some of these perps, they're not conscious perps. They're not conscious of their stalking. It's just something that's been induced in them. Yeah. The one that's really doing, you might not even be on the same street. He might not even be in the same country. Shit, he might not even be on the planet. So before you go around chasing these perps, apparent perps, those are apparent perps, then you have to ask yourself that, are these targets, people who have been targeted to target you by someone who wants to keep their hands clean and is miles away from you, like I've just given you in that cafe bar scenario. Yeah. So and also watch the habits you've picked up. I don't know if you look at my previous videos, I'd picked up a habit of scratching my nose every time, I think it was, I don't know, every 20-30 seconds, I don't know, I'll scratch it, and then I started scratching my eye, so then I started to look at myself. Just look at yourself for 5 minutes, just to be on the safe side. It should really be an hour. Just sit in a room, sit there, and just look at all the habits you have. If you're scratching your balls every 5 minutes, if you're scratching your knee every 5 minutes, if you're scratching one part of your body every 5 minutes, you're going to irritate it over time, and it will be prone to bruising, and it might even attract bacterium, and you give yourself a disease, and you won't know, but it's you that did it. So scratching your eye, you eventually give yourself conjunctivitis, and you're like, where does conjunctivitis come from? These are things you give yourself. These are things that you give yourself through the habits that you develop over time. So mind the habits you have can be put there deliberately by perpetrators in order to induce diseases in you. Like I keep saying, They do research. They have a health service that does research on the human body, and they also have advice from our health service telling us we must exercise every day. There's things they know we must do. Now, you develop these habits to stop yourself from doing the things you must do to keep your body healthy. Yeah. So I'm gonna keep this short because obviously I don't want the message to get lost because the talk overrun. So basically, it's about habits and neuro language programming that can be accidental, but can lead to some very, very serious things. I've been in a situation where they've had the whole room sneezing like within 20 minutes. From somebody just looked outside the window, saw someone sneezing, and after 20 minutes had the whole room sneezing. Yeah. Apart from me, because luckily I saw this scenario, it was a synchronicity event. Somebody just happened to be walking past the window of a building, a public house I was in, and they just happened to be sneezing as somebody was turning around to see it, and then after a few seconds they started sneezing, somebody else saw it, the whole room was done in 20 minutes. Yeah. But what can you say to that? Was that just purely coincidence, or did someone program that to happen? Well, if you see someone walking past sneezing and you see that five times, and then another person walks past, sneezes, another person walks past, then you know that this is deliberate. They're trying to catch a moment. Yeah, they're trying to create synchronicities where somebody can pick up that sneezing and do the whole room. Sometimes it's not just you they're targeting. Sometimes they're targeting everybody in the room. Sometimes they will target everybody in the country or city, or but I don't want to go into those type of perpetrators. So basically, I just concentrate on defending ourselves against these things. I'm not a perpetrator. I'm a victim, and I talk about things from the victim's point of view. So monitor yourself for your habits, but also monitor those around you for the habits they've picked up. Yeah, this is how you help each other. You look at what habits people have picked up, and if they're in the right frame of mind, you talk about it with them. You say, do you know how you picked up this habit? Yeah, this is a sign that you might be being targeted, or this is a sign that you might actually be mistaken for a perpetrator. You might, if you don't know you have this habit, then they're using you to perpetrate on others. Yeah, so don't let them use you like a puppet that goes around perpetrating on people when you don't know. Yeah, this is why you must monitor yourself to make sure you haven't picked up any habits. Yeah, so that you don't add to the problem, and so that you don't develop problems yourself.